In the heart of America, where industry once thrived and smokestacks touched the sky, stand the hollow bones of forgotten factories, crumbling, rusting, and haunted by more than just time. Behind these walls, thousands toiled, and many never left. Whispers echo through silent corridors. Footsteps fall where no living soul walks. And in the dark, something still waits. Tonight, we take you deep into the shadows of 10 real abandoned factories across the United States, each with a terrifying tale carved into its bricks, stained in blood and sealed in silence. From the fiery furnaces of Sloss in Alabama to the frozen halls of the Escondido Ice Plant in California, these are not just places of history, they are homes to the haunted. Turn off the lights, turn up the volume, and don't look behind you. These are 10 true horror stories from America's most haunted abandoned factories. The Ghosts of Sloss Furnaces, Birmingham, Alabama. Sloss furnaces once roared with molten iron and fire, shaping the backbone of industrial America. Today it stands silent, a rusted skeleton of brick and steel. But silence doesn't mean peace. In the early 1900s, a brutal foreman named James "Slag" Wormwood ruled the night shift. He was known for pushing workers beyond human limits, especially during the deadly Alabama summers. Under his iron fist, nearly 50 men lost their lives in freak accidents, burned, crushed, or drowned in molten metal. Some say Slag would intentionally place them in dangerous positions to boost production. In 1906, Slag met his end in the most gruesome way. He fell, or was pushed, into the Big Alice furnace. His body was incinerated instantly, leaving nothing behind but a legend. Ever since, strange things have plagued the furnaces. Night guards report hearing footsteps echo across catwalks that should be empty. Tools vanish and reappear in impossible places. One man swears he was shoved from behind near Furnace 1, but no one was there. When he turned, he saw a figure with a burnt face glaring at him from the shadows. Visitors describe hearing screams, long drawn-out cries that rise from beneath the ground. Others claim to see glowing red eyes in the darkness, watching them from behind rusted machinery. The most chilling account comes from a former worker who once tried to spend the night inside the furnace complex. At 2 a.m., he heard banging on the metal walls and whispers calling his name. When he tried to leave, the doors wouldn't budge. He says he saw Slag, his burned figure still wearing a worker's helmet, standing just feet away before everything went black. He woke up outside, his clothes scorched, his arms covered in bruises he couldn't explain. To this day, the city leaves the gates of Sloss furnaces locked tight after dusk. Some places were never meant to sleep. 2. The Haunting of Packard Plant, Detroit, Michigan. Once a symbol of Detroit's industrial might, the Packard automotive plant now stands as a decaying maze of broken glass, rusted beams, and forgotten memories. But the plant isn't just abandoned, it's alive with something darker. Urban explorers come for the thrill, but many leave shaken, never to return. Among them was Jason Miller, a thrill-seeking photographer who entered the plant one cloudy October afternoon, chasing rumors of the engineer, a ghost said to haunt the old assembly lines. The legend tells of a middle-aged supervisor in the 1950s who died under mysterious circumstances. Some say he was crushed by a falling engine. Others whisper he was murdered by a disgruntled worker. What's agreed upon? His body was found mangled and his face unrecognizable, still clutching a clipboard in his hand. Jason entered through a collapsed wall on the west side, his flashlight cutting through the dimness. He wandered through graffiti-covered halls, past rusted machinery and hollow office spaces. As he stepped into the cavernous main factory floor, he heard it, metallic footsteps echoing above. Thinking it was another explorer, he called out. No reply. Then came the scraping like metal dragging across concrete, closer and closer. His light flickered, then died. In the pitch black, Jason heard breathing, heavy and ragged. Then a voice, low and raspy. You're not supposed to be here. Terrified, he ran, crashing through debris, only to find the same corridor repeating itself. The walls seemed to shift. Shadows moved. In one brief flash of his camera, he captured it. A tall figure in a torn uniform, face half crushed, staring directly at him. Jason was found the next day by a friend, huddled in a corner, whispering the same sentence over and over. He never left, he never left. Today, many who enter the Packard plant speak of cold spots, tools clanging in the distance and eyes watching from upper floors. And every so often, someone hears the clipboard drop to the floor, with a clack that echoes forever. 3. The Lost Voices of Danvers Mill. Danvers, Massachusetts. Tucked behind the crumbling remains of the infamous Danvers State Hospital lies an abandoned textile mill, often forgotten, yet soaked in the same darkness. While the asylum's haunted reputation is well known, few realize that the mill, once used to employ and occupy certain patients, holds terrors of its own. The Danvers textile facility operated from the late 1800s through the early 20th century. Patients deemed calm enough were put to work spinning thread and weaving cloth in the echoing halls beneath the hospital grounds. But these weren't just jobs, they were punishments. Screams from beaten workers were masked by the constant hum of machines. According to local legend, one winter in 1924, a young woman named Lillian, just 17 and committed for hysteria, vanished during her shift. The staff claimed she had a breakdown and ran away. But other patients whispered a different story, that she was trapped in one of the massive weaving machines and crushed to death. Her body was never recovered. Since the closure of both the hospital and the mill, explorers have ventured into the underground textile halls. Most don't make it far before turning back, overwhelmed by the oppressive silence or the eerie feeling of being watched. One urban explorer, Sarah Delano, recounted entering the mill in 2011. Her flashlight illuminated old looms and forgotten spools of thread. But as she stepped deeper into the chamber, she heard soft humming, an old lullaby, distant and echoing. Then came whispers. Dozens of voices, layered over one another, murmuring incomprehensible phrases. Some laughed. Some cried. One unmistakably repeated, "Help me. I'm still here." Sarah tried to flee, but the hallway she came from had disappeared into pitch black. As she turned, she saw the faint outline of a young girl standing by a loom, her face pale, her eyes completely black. The footage from Sarah's camera ended in static. She hasn't spoken publicly since. Those who dare to enter the Danvers mill say you can still hear the machines whirring faintly, and if you're unlucky, Lillian might choose you to join her, forever spinning in the dark. "4. The Sweet Decay of Domino Sugar. Brooklyn, New York. The Domino Sugar Refinery once stood as a towering monument on the East River, its scent of burnt sugar wafting over Brooklyn. It was a place of industry, of labor, and, if the stories are true, a place where spirits linger in the syrup-stained shadows. The factory opened in the 1850s and became one of the largest sugar refineries in the world. Thousands worked there over the years, some of them children, others immigrants desperate for wages. Accidents were common. Boiling vats, conveyor belts, and collapsing storage silos claimed more than a few lives, though many incidents were quietly swept under the rug. After the plant shut down in the early 2000s, urban explorers crept in through broken windows and rusted doors. What they found wasn't just decay, but something watching. One such explorer, Daniel Cruz, visited on a foggy November morning. He documented the crumbling walls, the rusted silos, and graffiti-covered machines. But as he reached the third floor of the main refinery building, he heard something peculiar, the sound of a child laughing, soft, sweet, and echoing through the empty halls. He turned a corner and saw her. A little girl in a white dress, barefoot, sticky with molasses. She stared at him, unmoving. When he stepped forward, she vanished behind a door that hadn't been opened seconds before. Inside, Daniel found an old room used to store raw sugar. The floor was covered in a thick, blackened residue. The walls pulsed with humidity, and then he heard it. Footsteps sloshing through the sugar. Breathing. And a whisper right by his ear. "It's still sweet, underground." His flashlight flickered. In one sudden jolt of light, he saw figures, workers with no faces, children with blackened hands, all slowly turning toward him. Daniel ran. When he escaped the building, he found his shoes sticky as though he'd stepped in syrup. He swore he washed them a dozen times, but the smell of burnt sugar never left. Some say the refinery still sings at night. Locals have reported lights in the windows and voices on the wind. The laughing child appears most often, always near the old loading dock. They say the Domino Sugar Refinery may be gone, but its sweetness rotted long ago, and something bitter was left behind. "5. Echoes of Steel. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. For nearly a century, the Bethlehem steel plant forged the bones of America, Ships, bridges, and skyscrapers were born in its roaring furnaces. But behind the iron pride lies a legacy of blood, fire, and ghosts. The plant was massive, thousands of workers, towering blast furnaces, and miles of machinery that never slept. With that scale came accidents. Men fell into vats of molten steel, were crushed by falling beams, or suffocated in smoke-filled chambers. Death was part of the job, and the walls absorbed every scream. After the plant closed in 1995, the buildings were left to rust, like a wounded beast too tired to die. Urban explorers, ghost hunters, and historians came to wander its steel cathedrals, but many didn't come back the same. One such visitor was Eli Roberts, a retired steelworker who returned for nostalgia. As he wandered the silent corridors of the old No. 2 blast furnace, he began to hear it, rhythmic clanging like a hammer striking steel over and over. Then came the voices, shouts, screams, orders being barked in a language he hadn't heard in decades. The air grew thick with heat, though the furnaces had been cold for years. Suddenly he saw them, shadowy figures moving in sync, performing tasks long forgotten. One man, shirtless and glowing with sweat, turned and locked eyes with Eli. But his eyes were gone, just dark pits leaking black smoke. Frozen with fear, Eli heard a hiss of steam behind him. He turned and saw the apparition of a worker stumbling from a cloud of fire, his skin melted, arms outstretched, mouthing silent words before collapsing into nothing. Eli fled. Later, he told reporters, that plant may be shut down, but the work never ended. They're still in there. Still dying. Over and over again. To this day, guards patrolling the steel stacks at night report strange lights flickering in the old mill, sounds of machinery powering up, and the ghostly clang of steel against steel echoing through the empty halls. Bethlehem built America, but it buried its dead in molten iron. And not all of them found peace. 6. Smoke never sleeps. Durham, North Carolina. The American tobacco factory once filled the heart of Durham with the scent of fresh tobacco and the hum of endless machinery. It was a place where thousands worked, rolling, packing, and stacking cigarettes under the watchful eyes of stern supervisors. But behind the haze of sweet smoke and industry, something darker was always smoldering. Built in the late 1800s, the factory was a symbol of prosperity and pain. Workers, especially women, endured long hours in suffocating conditions. Reports of exhaustion, heat stroke, and fatal accidents were not uncommon. Yet the factory never paused. Production continued. Bodies were carried out and machines never stopped. After its closure in the late 1980s, the factory stood silent. Or so people thought. In 2005, a restoration crew was sent to inspect the lower levels of the plant for potential renovation. One worker, Luis Ortega, was assigned to the old fermentation chambers, dark, windowless rooms once used to cure tobacco leaves. Luis never believed in ghosts, but what happened next changed him forever. As he walked past the thick steel doors, he caught a whiff of fresh tobacco, sweet, almost floral, despite the factory being abandoned for over a decade. Then came a whisper. "It's time for your shift." Luis turned, expecting a prank. But no one was there. Then he saw her. A woman in 1940s clothing, her apron stained with brown streaks, standing by one of the massive curing racks. Her face was pale, her lips moving, but no sound came out. Luis stepped back, and suddenly the room was filled with figures. Dozens of workers, all moving in perfect rhythm, their hands packing invisible tobacco, their faces slack and lifeless. Smoke began to curl from the floor. Luis choked, unable to breathe. The woman looked straight at him, her eyes hollow, and mouthed, "You can't leave. Not yet." He stumbled out of the chamber, coughing violently, his arms covered in bruises shaped like fingerprints. Others who've entered the old fermentation room speak of phantom machinery rumbling to life, the scent of ghostly cigars, and a strange pressure in their lungs, as if something old and angry wants them to inhale. The factory may have closed its doors, but deep inside the air is still thick with smoke, and spirits who never punched out. Seven. The Threads That Whisper. Waverly, Georgia. Tucked behind a veil of moss-draped oaks and forgotten railroad tracks, the Waverly textile mill once hummed with life. Built in 1892, it clothed generations and sustained the small Georgia town. But behind the brick walls and spinning looms, something sinister was being stitched into the very fabric of the mill's history. The mill was notorious for overworking its employees, especially children and widowed women. The wages were low, the hours long, and the machines relentless. The most feared was Spindle Room 3, where dozens reportedly lost fingers, arms, or worse, in outdated, malfunctioning looms. In 1911, a fire broke out in that same room, killing 11 workers who were locked in during the night shift. They say their screams never left. Decades later, after the mill closed in the 1970s, thrill seekers and ghost hunters ventured inside. One local explorer, Tara McKinney, entered the ruins in 2014 with a camera crew. She never finished her recording. As her team spread out, Tara wandered toward the charred remains of Spindle Room 3. The air was stale and heavy with the scent of burnt cotton. Then came a faint clicking, like thread snapping under tension. Machines that hadn't turned in 40 years began to creak. The temperature dropped. She saw movement between the looms. A girl, no older than 10, with hollow eyes and a scorched dress, was staring at her. Behind her, shadows gathered, dozens of them, silent, watching. Suddenly, the machines began spinning. Tara screamed for her crew, but no one came. A voice whispered, "Finish the shift," as ghostly hands pulled at her jacket, her hair, her arms. She made it out, barely conscious, with red marks around her neck resembling threading wire. She quit ghost hunting after that night, and refuses to speak of what happened between those walls. Locals now avoid the mill grounds. They say if you go near Spindle Room 3 after dark, you can hear the looms begin to turn, and the weeping of those who never left. Some threads, it seems, were never meant to be unraveled. 8. The Frozen Silence. Escondido, California. Tucked between rusted rail lines and overgrown citrus groves in northern San Diego County, the old Escondido Ice Plant once served as the heartbeat of local agriculture, cooling fruit, meat, and train cars with massive blocks of ice. But locals whisper of something else buried beneath its frosted legacy. Something cold that never melted. Built in the 1920s, the plant operated non-stop for decades. Workers toiled in sub-zero rooms, often alone and overnight. Over the years, several vanished without a trace. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Just a set of footprints leading into the deep freeze, and none coming out. After its closure in the 1980s, the plant was sealed off. But thrill seekers still found their way inside. One such explorer, Aaron Cho, entered in 2012 with nothing but a flashlight and a camera. He never expected the ice machines to still be working. As he moved through the frozen corridors, he noticed the air grew colder, unnaturally so. Frost coated the walls, though the building had no power. A soft humming echoed in the distance. Then came the sound of chains dragging. Aaron turned toward the source and saw mist pouring from one of the old ice vaults. From the vapor emerged a figure, tall, gaunt, its face obscured by frost. It wore a butcher's apron stiff with ice, and its eyes glowed faintly blue. Aaron ran, slipping through the icy floor, ducking between rusted conveyor belts. But no matter which way he turned, he ended up back at the vault door. He later wrote in his journal, found days after he vanished. "It's not the cold that kills you. It's what's inside it, waiting." Police found his backpack near the main chamber, frozen solid. His body was never recovered. Locals say that if you stand outside the plant on certain winter nights, you can see your breath, thick and heavy, even if the air is warm. Some claim to hear banging from inside the walls as if someone, or something, is trying to get out. The Escondido Ice Plant may be abandoned, but something still walks those frozen halls, chilling the air, and waiting for its next visitor. 9. Barrels and Shadows. Bridgeport, Connecticut. The Remington Arms factory looms over Bridgeport like a rusted giant, its broken windows like empty eyes, staring blankly over decades of forgotten violence. Once one of the largest munitions factories in the United States, the complex churned out weapons and ammunition for 2 world wars. But its legacy isn't just forged in steel and gunpowder, it's soaked in blood. During its peak in the early 20th century, thousands of workers handled deadly materials daily. The factory was plagued with accidents, explosions, toxic fume leaks, and even mysterious disappearances. In 1916, a blast in Building 817 killed 7 workers instantly, their bodies never fully recovered. Some say they were vaporized. Others claim they were never alone in that building to begin with. After the plant closed in the late 1980s, it became a haven for urban explorers and thrill seekers. Many would later report strange sightings, doors slamming, shadows darting across corridors, and the unmistakable click of unloaded triggers in the dead silence. One explorer, Marcus Vail, entered the factory in 2013 to film a documentary. As he roamed the hushed hallways, he passed rusted assembly lines still littered with bullet casings. Then came the humming, low, mechanical like a conveyor belt running somewhere deep in the complex. He followed it to the old testing chamber, where workers once fired live rounds to test barrel strength. Inside, the lights on his camera flickered. A chilling cold washed over him. Then from the shadows came a figure in a scorched uniform, its face burned, eyes hollow. It raised a rifle and pulled the trigger. There was no bullet, just the deafening click, and then the echo of dozens more. As if a ghostly firing squad had assembled behind him. Marcus ran, but later claimed he could still hear gunshots in his dreams, loud, metallic, and wet. Today the Remington factory is sealed off. But those who've dared to sneak inside report the same thing. The smell of gunpowder, the whispers of men shouting orders, and the sudden heart-stopping sound of a bullet chambered, where no living soul stands. The war may be over, but the dead haven't disarmed. 10. The Brew Never Sleeps. St. Louis, Missouri. Once a symbol of pride and prosperity, the Falstaff Brewery in St. Louis towered over the city's skyline with its massive vats and towering smokestacks. Opened in the 1800s, it became one of America's most iconic beer producers. But beneath the rich aroma of hops and barley, something darker was fermenting. Over the decades, workers spoke of strange accidents. Men falling into brew kettles, scalded alive by boiling wort. Some vanished entirely, their absence quietly buried beneath the machinery and the beer. It was said that the brewery takes what it wants, and old-timers refused to work alone after sundown. When the brewery shut down in the 1970s, the massive facility was left to rot. Vandals and explorers trickled in over the years, but many came back with stories, and a few never came back at all. In 2011, local photographer Marcy Dalton entered the old plant to shoot an urban decay series. She was alone, climbing rusted stairs to the upper fermentation halls when she caught the scent, yeast and copper, far too fresh for a factory abandoned for 4 decades. Then came the dripping. She followed the sound into the vat room, where giant kettles still stood like silent sentinels. That's when she saw it, a shadowed figure bent over a kettle, moving slowly, stirring. The scraping of metal against metal echoed through the room. The figure turned, revealing a bloated face half melted, like it had been boiled from within. Its eyes were empty sockets, but they saw her. Marcy screamed and fled, but found every staircase down blocked by collapsed beams. Behind her, a wet dragging sound followed, as if the thing was crawling, pulling itself along the walls, whispering, "You're part of the batch now." She finally escaped through a broken side door. But afterward, Marcy said her hair always smelled faintly of hops, and at night she could still hear the slow bubbling of a kettle just beneath her bed. Locals today swear they hear clinking glass and laughter near the ruins at night, followed by silence so thick it chokes. Some say the brewery never stopped brewing. It just changed the recipe. And now it wants you to taste